He's not as lost as he seems. He's not as cold as he acts. He's not as distant as his silence suggests. Because behind the wall he built, beneath the mask he wears, he's waiting. Not for you to chase him, not for another message, not for proof of your love. He's waiting for your awakening. The divine masculine can't rise until you remember who you are, until you stop shrinking to meet him where he's stuck, and rise to show him what's possible. Because your light isn't just a beacon, it's a mirror, a guide, a frequency that calls him back to his soul. Have you felt that he needs something but can't ask for it? Share your reflection in the comments. You might be the voice another divine feminine needs to hear today. He's not lost. He's waiting. He stopped responding. He pulled away. He created distance. Emotionally, spiritually, sometimes even physically. And your heart asks the question it's asked 1,000 times. Did he forget? Did he let go? Was it ever real? But what if he didn't forget? What if the distance isn't about disconnection, but a sacred pause, waiting for a frequency he doesn't even know how to name? What if the divine masculine isn't lost, but waiting for you to awaken, not just to the connection, not to the idea of union, but to yourself? Because the feminine doesn't just carry the emotional core of this journey. She initiates it. She sets the frequency. She is the one who hears the soul's whispers first, and the one who must answer them. And in truth, he's waiting for that answer. The divine masculine may not know how to speak the language of spirit yet. He may not know how to explain the pull, the bond, the way you live inside his mind, even in silence. But he feels it, and he's watching silently for what comes next. Not your texts, not your tears, not your pleas. He's watching for your alignment, for the moment your energy stops reaching for him and starts anchoring in you. Because something in his soul knows, only when you awaken does he begin to remember. Have you felt that shift inside you? That moment where the waiting no longer made sense, where the longing began to feel heavy, unnatural, misaligned. That's not you giving up. That's you being called to rise. The masculine is not moved by pursuit. He's moved by presence. And when the feminine begins to live from her soul, not her pain, not her expectation, not her old story, he senses it. He may not have words for it. He may not even realize what changed. But suddenly, her energy no longer feels the same. It's not asking, it's not leaning, it's remembering, and that remembering wakes him. Because what the divine masculine fears most is not the love, It's the truth inside that love, the truth that he will have to change, that he will have to break, that he will have to let go of everything safe, comfortable, and predictable to meet her where her soul is calling from. And until the feminine embodies that space, not pretends, not performs, but lives it, he can't feel the path, because she is the path. This is the part no one teaches, that the journey doesn't begin when he chooses her. It begins when she chooses herself. And in doing so, she shifts the entire grid. She becomes magnetic, not needy. She becomes still, not chasing. She becomes vibrationally sovereign. That sovereignty is what calls him home. He isn't waiting for a perfect version of you. He isn't waiting for you to heal everything, to figure it all out. He's waiting for your yes to truth, your yes to mission, your yes to remembering that your soul came here to awaken, not to be rescued. He's not the rescuer. You're not the savior. You are mirrors, and when one mirror turns away from distortion and toward clarity, the other can finally see. So no, he's not lost. He's not broken. He's not your enemy. He's a soul in process, a heart in hiding, a being waiting for something that feels like home, but doesn't know that you becoming you is what unlocks it. So don't confuse his silence with indifference. Don't confuse his retreat with rejection. And above all, don't confuse your power with a problem. You are the beginning, not of the chase, but of the journey. And if he's meant to meet you there, he will. But not because you waited, because you awakened. The feminine's awakening lights the path. She is the heartbeat of the journey, the vibrational compass, the flame that burns quietly in the dark while he finds his way through the shadows. The divine feminine is not just part of the process, she is the catalyst. Because in this sacred dynamic, the masculine doesn't lead the awakening, he responds to it. He mirrors what she embodies. He follows the frequency she radiates, whether consciously or not. This is not hierarchy, it's design, divine design. And that means when she awakens, everything shifts. Not because she's trying to make him change, not because she's waiting for him to rise, but because she finally stops shrinking to match his confusion and starts standing in her truth. And this is what lights the path. It's not her words that call him back. It's her energy, her groundedness, her alignment, her quiet refusal to collapse for love. The feminine is the lighthouse. She doesn't chase the ship. She holds her position, anchored in truth, and the ship finds its way home, not because she went searching, but because she remained lit. This is how the masculine begins to awaken. Not through pressure, not through performance, but through presence. When she stops living in the loop of, will he come back, and starts asking, how can I return to myself more fully today? He feels it. He may not understand it. He may even resist it. But something in his soul recognizes the shift. Because what once felt familiar, the pull, the comfort, the emotional accessibility, is now different. She's not projecting energy onto him anymore. She's not seeking validation. She's not feeding the connection from a place of fear. Instead, she becomes magnetic in a whole new way, not seductive, sovereign, and that sovereignty calls him out of slumber. It creates tension in his field. The old way of relating, the dance of approach and avoid, no longer works. She's not playing the same game. She's walking a new path, and that path glows. Not with ego, but with clarity. The clarity that says, I love you, but I will not abandon myself to reach you. I see you, but I no longer see you through the lens of potential. I choose me, and from this space, only truth can enter. That level of alignment becomes a mirror he can't ignore. It forces him to feel everything he's buried. His shame, his unworthiness, his longing for love without the capacity to fully receive it. And that's where his real work begins. Because now the feminine is no longer standing in front of him begging for love. She's standing beside herself in full presence. And for him to meet her there, he must rise into his own soul. This is why her awakening is so powerful. Not because it guarantees reunion, not because it makes him chase, but because it restores balance. And in that balance, he's given a choice. Remain in distortion or remember the truth. Many feminines ask, but why do I have to go first? Why do I have to awaken alone while he sleeps? Because you were built for it. Your soul came wired with sensitivity, with intuition, with the ability to feel the undercurrents before the surface shifts. You are not here to rescue him. You're here to remember you. And in remembering you, you offer him the clearest reflection of himself he's ever encountered. Not the version he thinks he is, but the one his soul is waiting to become. That's the light, that's the path, and that's the power of the awakened feminine. So don't dim to match where he is. Don't pause your growth waiting for him to catch up. Keep rising, keep expanding, keep becoming. Because whether he follows or not, your awakening is never in vain. It's the frequency that changes everything, whether that change happens inside him or finally inside you. The masculine feels more than you think. He doesn't show it, he doesn't say it, and most of the time, he pretends it's not even there. But the truth is, he feels everything more than you imagine, more than he knows how to express, more than he's ever allowed himself to feel. Until you. The divine masculine's silence isn't emptiness. It's overload. It's the weight of emotions he doesn't know how to name. It's the fear of being seen too deeply, especially by the one person who can actually see him. Because when he met you, something in him cracked open, not in his mind, but in his soul. And even though he may not understand the journey, he feels it in his body, in his chest, in his sleep, in the invisible spaces where logic can't protect him. You are not the only one sensing the pull. You are not the only one receiving dreams, signs, waves of emotion. You are not the only one who can't fully let go, even when you try. He feels it too, but he doesn't know what to do with it. Because the masculine has been trained lifetime after lifetime to disconnect from feeling, to prioritize control over vulnerability, to replace inner knowing with external power. And then you show up, not as another relationship, but as a mirror, a vibration that stirs the parts of him he's buried. He can't escape it, even if he ghosts, even if he runs, even if he builds a life somewhere else. Because the real connection isn't in your presence, it's in the frequency that you unlocked inside him. And that frequency doesn't turn off. He may try to numb it with distractions, with logic, with other people. But nothing feels the same because now he's tasted something real, something ancient, something that reminds him of who he truly is beneath all the armor. And when the feminine awakens and pulls her energy back into herself, he feels that too. He feels the loss, the shift, the sudden absence of a connection that was once his emotional oxygen. And that's when the internal conflict begins. Part of him wants to reach out, to come back, to figure out how to hold what you were offering. But the other part, the unhealed, unconscious part, still feels unworthy. Not because of you, but because of all the voices he's internalized that say, I'm not enough. I'll mess it up. She deserves better. I don't know how to love like that. And this is the ache he carries in silence. He feels the connection. He dreams of the future. He replays the moments. He watches you from a distance, not always literally, but energetically. He checks in, even if you don't know it. Because the masculine loves deeply. He just doesn't trust that his love is enough. Not yet. That's why he hides behind confusion. That's why he says he doesn't know what he wants. That's why he shows up halfway, then disappears. He doesn't know how to hold the truth of what he feels. And until he does, he will resist what brings it to the surface, you. But that resistance is not rejection, it's reaction. It's his inner child trembling at the intensity of being fully seen. It's his ego screaming for safety. It's his soul quietly whispering, "Wait, we're not ready, but we want this." Have you felt this duality, that he's drawn to you and afraid of you at the same time? That he sends mixed signals even when the connection is undeniable? That he pushes you away right after getting close? It's because he's feeling too much, not too little. He's feeling the weight of love. The fear of failure, the craving for peace, and the panic that comes with it. And most of all, he's feeling your energy, the pull, the stillness, the transformation. And that's what stirs his awakening. Not your words, not your pleas, not your presence, but your embodiment. So when he goes quiet, don't assume he doesn't care. He cares deeply, more than he can handle. He just doesn't know how to alchemize the weight of what you activate in him yet. Because when the feminine continues to walk in truth, when she keeps her heart open but her energy rooted, when she becomes the example, not the rescuer, he feels that too, and it becomes the permission his soul needs to finally feel without fear. There's a moment in every divine feminine's path when she realizes the journey doesn't move forward through expectation. It moves through embodiment. She's spent time hoping, waiting, sending energy, asking for signs, wanting to know when he'll come back, when he'll finally awaken. But slowly, something deeper begins to rise in her. Not frustration, not defeat, but remembrance. The remembrance that she was never here to be chosen. She was here to choose herself first. And in that choice, something profound begins to shift. She stops watching the masculine's every move, stops trying to decode the silence, stops placing her worth in his readiness. Instead, she returns to her body, her breath, her path, her power. She begins to embody the very frequency that once lived only in vision. The energy of love, unconditional but not self-sacrificing. The energy of truth, soft, but unshakable, the energy of union, not with him, but with herself. This is where her role becomes sacred, because the masculine doesn't awaken when she explains. He doesn't awaken when she waits. He doesn't awaken when she pleads. He awakens when she embodies what she came here to be, not as a performance, not to trigger him, but because her soul will not allow her to stay small anymore. Have you felt this turning point? That moment when the sadness of separation is replaced by a calm sense of alignment. When the ache starts to fade and in its place grows a quiet fire, a clarity that says, I didn't come, I'm here to collapse. I came here to rise. That's embodiment. And it changes everything because the feminine's energy, once rooted in expectation, becomes a field of invitation, not for the old version of the masculine, but for the one who is ready to stand beside her, not above, not below, but in truth. She no longer lowers her frequency to meet him in confusion. She holds her frequency to invite him into the clarity. And whether he responds or not, she keeps rising. Because now the mission is bigger than reunion. The mission is remembrance of who she is, of what she carries, of the codes she activates, not just for him, but for the collective. Because when the feminine embodies her light, she becomes a frequency transmitter. Every word she speaks, every boundary she honors, every step she takes in alignment sends a ripple through the field. He feels it. Others feel it. The entire grid begins to shift. And this is how the journey evolves. Not through pressure, not through control, but through vibrational leadership. She leads by being. She teaches by example. She opens space, not by chasing, but by anchoring. And that's where the masculine begins to feel something he's never felt before. Safety. Not in her softness, but in her strength. Not in her availability, but in her sovereignty. Because true union doesn't happen when she waits for him. It happens when she becomes her own source. Then, and only then, can the masculine begin to rise out of his internal fragmentation. Because now he sees what's possible, not as a fantasy, but as a living, breathing example. She no longer holds space for his potential. She holds space for her purpose. And if he's meant to meet her there, he will. Not because she asked, not because she chased, but because she became. This is the feminine's sacred role: to remember, to realign, to rise not in reaction to him, but in devotion to truth. Because when she walks her path without fear, when she loves without losing herself, when she leads with embodiment instead of expectatio, the entire journey realigns, not for a man, but for the mission they both carry, the mission that only activates when she says yes to herself. When she rises, he follows. There is a moment in the twin flame journey when the feminine stops looking back, not out of bitterness, not out of ego, but because her soul is calling her forward, and she finally listens. She no longer walks with her heart tethered to the past. She no longer holds herself hostage to when he returns. She rises, and in that rising, everything begins to move. Not instantly, not always visibly, but vibrationally, something shifts. Because when the divine feminine reclaims her full power, she creates a sacred ripple, a frequency that echoes through the connection, through the masculine's field, through the ether that binds them and beyond. It's the ripple of truth, of alignment, of sovereignty. And even if he doesn't understand it, he feels it. He feels the space she no longer fills with projections. He feels the weight she no longer carries for him. He feels the field she once held open, now grounded in self-love, not expectation. And this absence of old energy forces his soul into choice. He can no longer rely on her to be the emotional anchor. He can no longer receive her light without showing up for his own. Because she's no longer handing him the map. She became the map and walked away to follow it. This is the ripple that changes timelines. The masculine begins to feel the distance, not as punishment, but as an echo of everything he never said, never faced, never stepped into. And for the first time, he realizes this connection wasn't here to complete him. It was here to wake him, not through closeness, but through the vibration of a woman who remembered her divinity and stopped waiting for him to do the same. This is how the masculine rises, not from her effort to save him, but from her decision to embody herself fully. When she lives in truth, her truth, he starts questioning his illusions. When she radiates without reaching, he feels the discomfort of his own stagnation. When she no longer adjusts to be chosen, he begins to question what version of himself he's been choosing all along. This is the sacred ripple, and it's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's not forceful, it's energetic. The masculine awakens in the field of her embodiment, in the frequency of her alignment, in the quiet power of a woman who no longer chases, but still loves from a distance that honors her soul. Have you felt this ripple? That moment when you stopped reaching and suddenly felt him pulling? That shift where your silence was louder than your words, that deep knowing that something was changing on his end, even as you turned inward. It's not wishful thinking, it's resonance. Because when one twin shifts, the connection shifts. And while his ego may resist it, his soul begins to stir. Dreams increase, synchronicities amplify, old emotions surface. A sense of urgency rises, not because she asked for it, but because her energy became a mirror he could no longer avoid. The masculine energy, when faced with that mirror, is given two paths: remain in resistance or rise into remembrance, and the choice is his. But the invitation was hers. She extended it, not with words, but with her return to her essence. That's how powerful her role is. When she rises into wholeness, the masculine is summoned to remember who he truly is. Not her protector, not her project, not her missing piece, but her equal, her divine counterpart, the embodiment of union, not because she needs him, but because they were designed to reflect each other at their highest. So if you've risen, if you've stopped chasing, stopped hoping, and started living, trust that the ripple is in motion. You may not see it yet, but it's unfolding, not because he's watching you, but because his soul can't ignore what you've become. This is the journey, not just back to each other, but first back to truth. You are the beginning of union. You came into this journey searching for answers, longing for connection, carrying the ache of something ancient you couldn't explain. You met him, and everything changed. Your soul remembered. Your energy activated, your heart opened to a love that felt bigger than time. But somewhere along the way, the journey stopped being about him and started calling you back to you. This is the truth that most don't realize. Union doesn't begin when he chooses you. Union begins when you choose yourself, fully, sacredly, without apology. The divine masculine isn't waiting to be convinced. He's waiting to be shown what union looks like in motion, in vibration, in presence. And that begins with you. Not as the chaser, not as the healer, not as the one who waits at the edge of your own life, hoping he'll return, but as the woman who says, I remember who I am. I remember what I came here to do. I will not dim my light, waiting for someone else to be ready. That remembering is the ignition point. It's the shift that changes the entire frequency of the journey. Because when you stop orbiting around his timeline, you return to yours. You begin to embody your mission. You create not from longing, but from soul. You stop wondering if he'll wake up and start awakening everything inside of you. And that's when union becomes possible. Because union is not just the merging of two bodies, two lives, two hearts. It is the meeting of two awakened energies, standing in truth, in purpose, in power. And that meeting can only happen when at least one of you goes first. One of you says yes. One of you walks ahead and creates the path. That's the feminine's calling, not to chase, but to clear, to hold the light, to walk in alignment so that the masculine can recognize what love truly is, not the fantasy, but the frequency. So many divine feminines wait for the sign, wait for the message, wait for the moment that confirms it's time. But the truth is, you are the sign. Your awakening is the confirmation. Your energy is the moment. When you rise, everything changes, not because you forced it, but because you become a vibrational match for sacred union, first within yourself, then in the connection. Have you felt that shift, that moment when you stopped searching for him and started discovering parts of yourself you had buried? That moment when peace replaced the obsession. That subtle knowing that if he's meant to return, he will. But whether he does or not, you are whole. That is union. Union isn't something you wait for. It's something you become. And from that embodiment, everything else aligns. He may rise to meet you. He may feel the call and begin his own transformation. He may find his way back, not to the old version of you, but to the one who no longer needs him to choose her, because she already chose herself. And if he doesn't, the path still holds, the love still lives, the journey still unfolds. Because you didn't come here to find someone, you came here to become someone. And that becoming is the frequency of true union. So walk it, live it, embody it. Let the masculine rise in his own way, in his own time. But let your light rise now. Because when you do, you activate every step forward. In him, in you, in the collective field. You are not just waiting for union. You are the beginning of it. And that is everything.